pairs, then some of the data is going to be lost and there will be errors. All right, the next, which is the near-end crosstalk, is the crosstalk between pairs. In other words, you put a signal on one pair and then you measure how much signal is on the other pair. And we do that digitally. And then on the fixed, which is the far-end crosstalk, we measure the crosstalk from one pair to another, but on the far end of the cable. Okay, we say the split pairs are okay. The map is okay. In other words, it may be a straight-through cable or it might be crossover cable, but it's one of the accepted configurations. It's a patch cable, and the tolerance is 87%. In other words, it's 87% over the minimum spec for this cable.
And you know, for viewers that are worried about writing down all these notes, they can simply open up their manual, and we've attempted in the manual to have a glossary of terms as you see them appear on the screen. So we talk about, well, length. What does length mean? What is propagation delay? What is skew? So we invite you to read through the manual at your convenience, and especially at the end here, I think, where we show you how to build a proper category 5E or 6 cable.
That's right, Daryl. And now we continue with our review, and we can see the map. Now the map tells us where the pairs on the near end connect to the pairs on the far end. In this case, we see that pair 1, 2, in other words, pin 1, 2 is connected to 1, 2 on the far side. 3, 6 on the near side is connected to 3, 6 on the far side. And it tells us that all the pairing is proper, and there's no split pairs, no shorts, no opens. Now over here, it shows us the delay for each of the pairs. It shows us the skew, which is the difference, and you can see that one pair is, of course, 0. One pair only has a 1 nanosecond skew, one has 3, and one has 5. And now we're back to the beginning, which shows us that we have a very good Cat5e cable.
You know, we were talking about how with this tester in today's version that we're allowing the customer to skip all of this primary data and give them the choice to store it or not, or review it. And of course, we've just reviewed it screen by screen. But if the customer chose in the field not to review it, instead to go back to their office and print it out, what they'd get is a printout like this. Now I just want to cover up these bottom 2 graphs, because these bottom 2 graphs have to do with level 2 testing, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Very good idea. We'll keep that secret for now. But for level 1 testing, exactly what we've accomplished on this 50-foot cable so far, this is what your printout looks like. Now this is a bit of a different cable, but you can see that all of the information that we went through is recreated on the graph, including all of the timing, the propagation delay, the skew. The wire map appears right here, and the cable category as it did appear on the tester in graphical form, along with the predicted speed of data through the cable. Now this would have been stored in your tester. You get back to your office again, you import it into Excel, and then you print out a spreadsheet, and there's one spreadsheet per cable. Now, why don't we go on, instead of storing this, like most people would, and move on to the next cable, let's continue on with this test right into level 2, Joe.
That's a good idea, Daryl. Now, of course, most people would be stopping at certifying the cable itself, but there are those customers who want to really see the cable working with their equipment.
Okay.
And we can do that. So we just move the cursor down to certify with port, and we select that. It tells us to plug in to the port, and it tells us that a gigabit port will certify at 10 meg, 100 meg, and a gigabit.
Now, you know, I've been told this is one of the things that makes this unit so friendly. it might seem obvious that if you wanted to connect a port and real-world certify to a gig, that you need a gig device to do it. But let's say you only had a 100 megabit device. This is just reminding you that if you want to real-world certify to a gig, you got to have a gigabit device.
Right. And so, but if the customer has a gigabit port and he wants to certify to a gig, he can use his, his 100 megabit port. Now let's go certify. All right, and now it tells us we have to plug in the device. So we now plug into the port that we're trying to certify with. And you look at the screen here, and it's starting to talk to that port, and it's getting more and more information. Now here it is complete. It tells us that this port is capable of 10 megabit full duplex, 100 megabit full duplex, and a gigabit full duplex.
You know, this is the kind of thing that really makes my eyes light up. I see so many people who are testing cables with this tester that look at it as primarily a cable device, and then they get a screen like this that pops up, and you can actually go and read the link pulse of your network device, and it'll tell you exactly what the capability of the device is. It's a strong feature, isn't it? In fact, some people just use this device for that feature.
Right, and also cable pullers use it too, because a lot of times, they'll do their installation, and then a few days later the customer calls up and says, I can't get my network going. It must be your cable.
Right, exactly.
The cable guy is always the easiest guy to blame. First to get the blame. So this way, the cable guy, instead of having to go back there and install a second cable to find out the second cable works the same as the first cable did, he can plug into the customer's equipment and say, oh, wait a minute. You're trying to run at a gig, and that switch over there is only a 100 megabit switch.
There you go.
All right, or maybe the card in your PC is only a 100 megabit card. And then he doesn't have to go through all that trouble of pulling another cable just to prove that the cable works.
Mm-hmm.
Now it shows us also that the port out there has an auto MDI/MDI-X. In other words, it can be either straight through or crossover.
Make its own cable.
That's right. And now here is a really big feature. You can actually see the data levels on each of the 4 pairs.
Yeah, look at that.
And this is in a nice readable format. And over here we have a line across where it shows the minimum data level according to the spec.
And you made the point earlier, the poor cable guy getting blamed for a bad cable. Here you come along and you can actually see real live data coming out of the customer's own switch. See the signal levels of each pair. Clearly displayed, plenty of signal there, more than twice what you need.
That's right, and it's a nice simple format, so now this is something that he can talk to the customer with. So let's say, for example, if these signal levels were just barely above minimum, or maybe even a little bit below minimum, he could tell the customer, well, it's not a cable problem, it's, your device has a small signal level.
Right.
Maybe you should get another one, or maybe you need a repeater, and then you can start talking about choices of what to do.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Now this is a screen that I like a lot, because this takes the summary of the cable test and the data test, and it combines them together in one screen, and we can see is that this cable and that hub can run well above a gigabit,
mm-hmm.
and there's a good margin for error. So this is a sound good installation. This cable and a hub together, or switch, are a good combination, and we're going to have good results, good reliable results.
You betcha.
And now we can save the results.
Now you get your second chance to save, right? We bypassed the first chance to save after level 1 because we didn't want to stop testing. Now we get our second chance to save at the end of level 2.
Right. Now we can save up to 250 readings, and we can print them out later. Or sometimes, let's say if there's a marginal situation, You may want to talk to your supervisor who may be on the other side of the building doing a different part of the installation. You might say, hey, well, look at the data here, you know, this is pretty good, this is marginal, what should we do about this?
Right, because you can look at it after you've stored it.
All right, now let's save the reading. Now if we look over here, it tells us, you know, to press select to save. So we just press select. And that was reading number 9.
Number 9. So we have 9 tests that are stored in memory. And now let's just go ahead and shut off the tester. We aren't going to lose our readings because they're stored in flash memory. In fact, you could even disconnect the battery from this thing and the readings are going to be there.
That's right. And we can now print out the readings, or we can go back to the original menu and review the readings. Mm-hmm. Let's say, for example, the readings we took upstairs, we can take a look at those and talk to the customer and say, well, you know, reading number 1 and 2 were pretty good. 3 is kind of marginal. Maybe we ought to do a little more work there. Sure. Maybe that's, you know, you'd like us to install a new cable for that one. 5 and 6 are okay. 10 through 20 need new cable. You know, that kind of thing.
So test 9 was a level 1 and a level 2 test.
That's right.
So now we're going to pretend that this printout is that particular test, and that we went back to the office, imported it into Excel, and printed it out. Now we can uncover the level 2 part of our printout. And as you can see, we're showing you a graphical display of the signal levels that you saw when you were running the test. Data signal levels. Notice how we clearly label it port here, clearly label it cable up here to differentiate between the cable test and the port test. And then this is the final speed prediction, taking into account the capability of the port and the cable. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this video clip, haven't we? Yes, we have, and I hope we showed you the capability and how user-friendly this is, and how the graphics really help you bridge the gap between the installer and the customer, because as you can see, everything is simple and straightforward. The graphics really help you to be able to talk to your customer so that he understands the situation. You're not trying to snow him with a bunch of dB this and dB that. Very well said. Thank you, Joe.